Okay, so you want to get the lowdown on that big VCT EMA match, right? GIANTX versus NAVI. Understand the key moments, how one team just, well, ran away with it. You're definitely in the right place.
Okay.
This is the deep dive. We're going to break down that clash, pull out the stuff you really need to know, especially what made the results so one-sided.
Exactly. And we're leaning heavily on the match commentary here. It's like having a real-time analysis, you know? Lets us get into the strategy and the big plays without rewatching every single second. And it's fascinating how you can hear the story unfold through the commentators' eyes, their reads on the teams, and why things went the way they did.
Right. Okay, let's dive in then. So going into this one, there was maybe this feeling, this anticipation that GIANTX could build something here. They did a closed series before, and didn't they usually like starting on defense in their earlier games?
They did, yeah. But as soon as the map started split, the reality was, well, completely different. Na'Vi just came out incredibly strong. They established control almost immediately. And GX, honestly, they struggled to find any kind of answer.
And this is where it gets really crucial, I think, those pistol rounds. You know, first round, limited cash, huge for momentum, and Na'Vi absolutely nailed the pistol round on split. That was, what, their fourth pistol win against GX in the series? Well, GX only had one?
That pistol win was massive, and what's really key is how Na'Vi just ran with it. Straight into an anti-eco flawless win there. Then they grabbed the bonus round right after. So boom, straight away, GX are under serious pressure, economically, mentally, everything.
Yeah, you could almost feel it building. And then when GX got onto their attack side, those struggles just continued, didn't they? The commentary even mentioned their previous game on split. They only managed 2 attack rounds total. That kind of sets the scene.
It really does. The commentators were pointing out a real lack of variety, almost predictability in GX's attacks. It often looked like just straightforward site hits. Na'Vi seemed to know what was coming, like that push onto ace site in a full buy round. It just felt, well, a bit too simple against a team like Na'Vi. There was mention of repetitive defaults, too, especially going for these isolated plays on A without really securing other parts of the map first. It made them super readable.
Right, easy reads for Na'Vi.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the big picture strategy, was it? Even the small stuff, like using their agent abilities, their utility, sometimes it just fell flat. I remember hearing about a near-sight ability used kind of ineffectively in vents, like maybe thrown too early or just not quite right.
Exactly. A mischance, or maybe just not quite the right idea for that moment. It gave Na'Vi time to react, or it just didn't hit anyone important. Now contrast that with Na'Vi. Their defensive holds, the way they set up crossfires to support each other, really solid. And a big thing the commentators kept noticing was how well Na'Vi seemed to anticipate GX. They were clearing out spaces proactively, like they just knew where GX wanted to go.
And you just have to talk about some of the individual plays from Na'Vi. Hero. Wow, for a huge chunk of that map, he seemed almost untouchable, just kept getting massive kills, holding sites, stopping retakes. Multiple times, he seemed to just, like, stop a GX push single-handedly.
Oh, absolutely. Hero holding those key angles, getting 2 or 3 kills sometimes. It was a huge factor. Then you had Koala, strong pistol rounds, like we said, but also really impactful ultimates at just the right moments, swinging rounds back their way. And Roxic, maybe his operator wasn't as dominant on split as in other games, but the overall team play, the coordination from Na'Vi, it was clearly on point.
Okay, but were there any glimmers of hope for GX? Any moments where you thought, okay, maybe they can turn this around?
Very brief ones. You'd see an individual kill, maybe a nice shot here or there that showed skill, but the big problem for GX was stringing anything together. They just couldn't build on those small moments, couldn't win consecutive rounds to actually put pressure back on Na'Vi.
Yeah, it felt like any small advantage they got just slipped away. I think there was that situation mentioned where they actually got the spike down, planted it, and still lost the round. Those are the ones that really hurt momentum.
Precisely. And as those rounds kept ticking up for Na'Vi, 8-0, 9-0, then hitting 10-0, you could really hear the tone shift in the commentary. Increasing concern, maybe even a bit of shock, like, what is happening here? They were asking, what's GX's plan? How can they adapt? That timeout GX took when they were down 10 rounds felt pretty desperate.
Yeah, a real sign of trouble. And unfortunately for GX and their fans, the second half didn't really change the narrative much. Na'Vi just kept rolling.
Which brings us to that final score on split. 13-0, just a dominant win for Na'Vi. And obviously a really crushing loss for GIANTX. And the historical context is important too. First 13-0 in VCT EMEA since way back in 2022. That really underlines how decisive this map was.
So pulling it all together, looking back at this deep dive through the commentary, what's the main takeaway here?
Well, the contrast is just incredibly stark, isn't it? Navi looked cohesive, strategically sound, great individual plays, fantastic reads on their opponent. And GX, they seemed, well, a bit lost, frankly, struggling for a clear plan, unable to really adapt when things started going wrong. The commentary kept highlighting those recurring mistakes from GX and how clinical Navi were in punishing them.
Okay, so to wrap up our deep dive, this split map between GX and Navi really showed a massive gap in performance on the day. Navi looked incredibly strong, strategically sharp, while GX's difficulties definitely raised some big questions about their current form in VCT EMEA.
Yeah, and it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What really goes into these super dominant performances in esports? Is it purely down to strategy, raw individual skill, or is it that mental game, performing under pressure, or, likely some mix of all of that working together perfectly? And maybe more pointedly, looking at this game, what can other teams learn, both from Navi's execution, definitely, but maybe even more from the struggles GX faced? And what does a result like 13-0 actually signal for where these two teams might be heading next in the VCT EMA season? Something to mull over.